For this part, we're going to use yellow ochre, titanium buff, ultramarine violet, burnt umber, and I'm going to have some white handy, just in case. So I'll try not to use white, but if I need it, I'm going to pull it in. So let's start with a bright brush, not too big. Let's start with this wall. Let's start highlighting this wall right here. I take titanium buff, put some burnt umber in it. A little bit of ultramarine. I know it's like the same, but no, it's not going to be. It's the same colors we used for the first layer, but we're going to highlight this a bit. So I'm going to add more titanium buff, but I just don't want to add just titanium buff. I want to add titanium buff with other colors in there. Yeah, that's good. That's a good color. And while I'm doing this, I will add some yellow ochre, a little bit of yellow ochre here and there, so it doesn't look like it's just one color.
So that main color really is titanium buff, right?
Titanium buff with a bit of burnt umber. Yeah, and touch of ultramarine violet. So sometimes I would put just ultramarine violet and put it in. So, you know, the whole idea is not to have a wall that looks flat. A wall that this wall will have some of the colors that we have been using here. And actually in the original painting I added a bit of blue as well, like a glaze of blue in there. But we don't really have to do this right now. We just have to make sure that our colors are connect with the rest of the painting. Oops. So at the bottom, I add a little bit of more of the ultramarine violet, so it doesn't look too light at the bottom, but I want the light to be on, you know, mostly right here where the sun is hitting. So I'm going to be adding now more of the titanium buff and keep the bottom part darker. it's nice to make it look rough. Not too, a little bit of a rough. The color you see on the monitor is too bright. It's not that bright here. I'm gonna go in using slightly darker colors now. Side, it has burnt umber, yellow ochre. Here, this wall here is too straight. I'm just gonna soften it a bit. I like to wait for the color to dry and see, so I can adjust the brush stroke or the value. Okay. Okay. Let's do the bottom part. Let's take some. I always like to start a bit dark and highlight slowly. Titanium buff, ochre, and violet. This time I'm going across with the corner of my brush. Because when you start darker, a little bit darker, then you can highlight over that. And when you highlight, you can see it. If we start with a strong highlight, then we're not going to see the darks. So first layer, it takes darker values, put them in there. Doesn't matter what they are, because we're going to layer over. See, sometimes I use yellow, sometimes I use yellow ochre. Yellow ochre and ultramarine. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Because that color that we have right now is the original color that we, we primed the canvas with. So I'm using now titanium buff, yellow ochre, and I'm putting a bit of ultramarine in there, ultramarine violet, just to tone it down. This way I can build in my highlights in layers instead of just one layer. It gives it depth. Usually what I do is I try to put the light part in front of the entrance and then keep the sides a little bit darker. So now I'm getting to the side. I'm going to pull some ultramarine violet into my color and just push that color in to the side. So I have more highlights here. So I'm going to go over this one more time here, this area here. I'm just trying to fill the actual ground here and get rid of the primer, the color that we used to prime the canvas with. Right, let's take this in. Okay, now I can go back, take a little bit more of the titanium buff, come here, and see if I can put a couple of titanium, lighter titanium buff in here. Yeah. Just have to keep in mind, I shouldn't be using the same color all over. So sometimes, you get into that mood and you start using the same color the whole all over. From time to time, just go in and add different colors. Let's continue a bit here. Some highlights on the steps. A little bit more. Although I said I'm not going to use yellow ochre, I did, but I like it. I like that yellow. A little bit more on the sides because it's drying darker on the sides. So I'm gonna pull in some titanium buff, a bit of yellow ochre, and ultramarine violet. Okay.
Before you do,
Let's see. Fine.
I still can't get that.
Okay, I'll come in a minute. I'm just going to use here titanium buff and ultramarine with a bit of yellow, and just open up this. It's just the green in here is very dense, and just shape it up like negative painting. I'm seeing a negative painting. Just kind of fluff it up a bit. Some highlights here. Let's soften it. That's better. This part here is good. The only other part that I would work on is right in here. There's a bit of wall in here. This is when I go back and do some negative painting, bit of negative painting. Now everything is dry, so I can pull in some titanium buff, maybe just titanium buff at this point with a smaller brush, and give this area here a couple of brush strokes with just titanium buff. See, now I can see, because the base that I put it first had some darks in it. So now if I go back and use titanium buff only, I'm going to see this. I'm going to see the brush strokes. Nice soft highlights in here. Not here and there. Right, so I'm mixed here. Burnt umber. Whoa, it looks so dark on the screen. Burnt umber and ultramarine violet. And I'm going to start with just kind of a round brush. Let's change a bit this so the branches don't come from the same point. I'm gonna widen this a bit. And down here too. And then I'm gonna take it in, up, maybe a little bit one here. And I'll put another one and just take it up. Same here. Right there. And maybe another one here. There. So I can let this dry, or I can just, and highlight it, or I can just leave it just the way it is, add a bit of more, another layer when it's dry, a bit of highlights, but let it dry for now. There. I think it needs a bit more substance because it looks like a shadow right now more than a tree. So I'm going to darken it a bit, but I really should wait for it to dry. Yeah, that's better. Now, in this case, I should take a bit of the ultramarine violet, put some, actually, you know what, ultramarine violet and yellow ochre. Let's see. And make it into glaze. I'm adding tiny bit of titanium buff. So I can see in this mixture, it's ultramarine violet, yellow ochre, and titanium buff, but I can see more of the ultramarine violet in there. And it's a glaze, so it's like transparent. I'm gonna take that and then I'll come down from here and push that up. Push it up and so because it's a glaze, it looks like it just pushes the tree off of the wall. Let's do one here. That's good. And another one. Let's take it from here out this way. There we go. That looks good. And let it dry. I should let it dry. I shouldn't be playing with this right now, but that's okay. And see if I need to do anything else, if I need another layer. What I would like to do in this point, take the color of the branch and maybe change brushes or try to use the same brush, but make some smaller branches coming out. Let's see if I can do that. Let's see if I can make a.
You're recording this?
Hmm? Yes, I am. Very thin, smaller ones. Make the same with the glaze and glaze the wall. Okay. Shouldn't touch it too much because it's going to lift. I'm going to bring in some of the branches, dark ones. Yeah. Using the brown. Bring them in a bit into this. Just it's nicer to have. It's nice to see those branches. Just a bit of different texture in here or different pattern. Oh, sorry. Not much, just a bit. I think this is a bit too much in here. Let's remove it. It's better. Okay. So adjust this branch a bit. Now I can take a little bit of burnt sienna, mix it with yellow ochre, and try to highlight a bit some areas in here with this combination of burnt sienna and yellow ochre. Don't want to highlight it too much. I just want to give it a bit of a red color in certain areas. But I like to keep it dark because I don't want it to mix with the wall. But we do have a bit of sun on it, so we're going to show that by using yellow ochre. Here, let me put some burnt umber in my yellow ochre and burnt sienna. It gives it a bit of texture, right? All right, I'm going to take yellow ochre, white, or a titanium buff, tiny bit of ultramarine violet, and that's the color of the wall. So what I'm doing is I'm just highlighting, creating a nice color of the wall again. Wipe my brush, and I'm going to come do some negative painting in here. Because when you have shadows, you have light, strong light. That makes the pattern in here look really interesting. Yes. Okay, so I'm going to put a bit of shading in here. I'm using ultramarine violet, yellow ochre, and a bit of titanium buff. This is more of the ultramarine violet than there's more ultramarine violet here than yellow ochre. Yeah, that's better. And it's like a glaze. It's not too heavy. I don't want to play around with it too much because I can paint this forever if I don't stop. I'm using a bit of burnt sienna and I'll mix it with my yellow ochre. It's a beautiful color, warm, and it gives me an orangey earth orange. I prefer that to yellow ochre only. Yep. Okay. It's amazing how acrylic dries. It dries here. I'm going to put a bit because it's drying too dark in here. So I put a bit of titanium buff in my glaze. And I'm just making it softer. And go in. Yeah, that's better. Just, it was a bit harsh for the shadow. Okay. Right, changing the color of the window here, the window pane. I mixed cerulean blue, raw umber, and white. It's just kind of more grayer. It's not too blue. It's toned down. Oh my God, much better. Because it's drying darker, I'm adding a bit of white. All right. Right, so we're done with this project and this is how it looks.